Let me tell you the true story of Thanksgiving that you will not hear anywhere else. You won't hear it in school. There's barely any mention of it on the mainstream media. There's barely even any mention of it in history books until you put certain pieces of evidence together. Now, the story starts with the Protestants. Now, these individuals who were very strict, they were very dedicated to their work ethic and very, how do you describe this? Killjoys, very anal, uptight beings who had their own religion. And the British monarchy did not accept their religion and demanded that everyone must worship the God that the British monarchy worships, no matter if it's Catholicism or Christianity, whatever it was. The British demanded it of the Protestants. The Protestants said no, and they were persecuted religiously. So they go over to Holland, which not many people know about, because Holland was accepting of other people of different religions, and they finally gained their religious freedom. There was a problem. The kids that were growing up in Holland started questioning their religion because they were assimilating. Because of this religious freedom, they were not wanting to practice their religion that their family was practicing. The Protestants saw this as a huge problem, and they said, our kids want total religious freedom and they want to assimilate and not be told what religion to worship? Crap, we got to get out of here. And that's when they decided to make the journey, the long, stressful, incredibly dangerous journey across the Atlantic from Europe, from England, all the way to North America. They made this journey, barely made it. Many times the ship broke down and they had to fix and repair the ship while they were sailing on the ocean. There is one interesting story that I find very, very fascinating. There was an individual named John Holland. Now, John Holland, during a major storm on the Mayflower, on one of those ships that was coming over to North America, because of the storm being so fierce, John fell off. He was just thrown off of the ship, of the Mayflower. And because of a miracle, because of someone noticing him falling from the Mayflower, someone threw a rope. And in the middle of a storm, John Holland was able to catch that rope and was able to be saved in what people are calling a miracle. Now, I find this very interesting because John Holland, if it wasn't for John Holland surviving and having 10 children, there would be no Bush family. He is the ancestor of the Bush family. And because of this miracle, and because of this individual, Squanto, I'll get back to this guy later. Because of this individual and because of this miracle, John Holland survived, and we have the Bush family prevalent here in the United States. Now, on with the story. The Pilgrims finally make it to the U.S., and they brought their women and their children. Native Americans saw this, and usually Native Americans at this point in time were very mad at any traders, at any explorers, because traders and explorers would come and enslave people, murder people, and then leave. They would rob and loot and enslave people and then just get out of there. These Protestants who brought over their women and children were wanting a new way of life. The Indians saw this as a sign of non-aggression. And they allowed these pilgrims to stay there. And the major reason the pilgrims were able to survive, because other settlers who came and tried to live in North America died many times because of the harsh conditions. The only reason they were able to survive was because of this man, Squanto. Now, Squanto, at the age of 12, in North America, as a Native American, was hanging out on the beach with his friends, and he notices this huge ship, and he tells his friends, this is really interesting, I heard about these guys, we should go over and see what they're about. I heard that they trade, and I heard that they're really fascinating guys that we never seen before. Squanto's friends are like, I don't know, I got a bad feeling about this, we probably shouldn't go over there. Squanto's like, no, let's go say hi. Squanto says hi at the age of 12 to these traders, to these explorers, And now these explorers are very nice to him at first. They give him food. Squanto's like, hey guys, I told you, there was nothing to worry. These guys were very nice. And before Squanto knows it, these explorers capture Squanto, tie his hands, put a bag over his head, throw him in the back of the ship, and then take him to Spain and sell him as a slave. Him and his friends were just taken by these explorers and sold as slaves in Spain. All of his friends were sold off to different people to work as indentured servants. Luckily, Squanto was bought off by a monk and was able to gain his freedom in Europe. He learned English, and Squanto made his way back to England from Spain. And in England, he said, hey, you guys enslaved me, took me away from my family and my loved ones. I would like to go back. And then the English said he had to work for it. So he worked 5 years and was finally able to go back to North America, to his community in Plymouth Rock. That's what the Pilgrims named it. So he goes back to his community, goes back to his tribe. He's finally in North America after that long and very dangerous journey across the ocean. He finally is able to locate where his tribe lived. And he's walking around looking for his family, looking for his friends. And he finds every last one of them dead from smallpox that the settlers brought into North America. Everyone he knew, everyone Squanto knew, died because of smallpox, because of this disease that was spread by the Europeans traveling to North America. Squanto then finds the Wampanoag tribe. He joins them, and they run into the Pilgrims and their women, and they make a determination that they're not a threat, that they're okay to stay, that they're not going to enslave them or rob them and loot them, and that they should probably help them. I don't know what was going through Squanto's head. I mean, one, he was made a slave by Europeans, and then his whole family, everyone he knew, died because of Europeans, and for some reason, Squanto decides to help out the Pilgrims. Why? I don't know. Maybe he wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, but if it wasn't for Squanto, because the Pilgrims were having an extremely hard time planting their harvests, growing food, and hunting. Squanto said, no, your European seeds are not working here. You're planting them the wrong way. Here are some native plants and seeds that you should be growing. Here's how to harvest them. Here's where to hunt. And because of that, in 1621, the Pilgrims had such a successful harvest that they decided to celebrate. Before Squanto, half of the Pilgrims died of starvation and disease. But because of Squanto being able to teach them how to hunt and how to grow food successfully in North America, they were able to survive. So much that they were celebrating that they were surviving. And many people think that Native Americans were invited as a sign of thank you by the Pilgrims. Thank you for saving us and making sure we live and survive. No. They had their first Thanksgiving by themselves. The Pilgrims actually thought the Native Americans were primitive. They didn't like how the Native Americans lived in harmony with the earth, and how they didn't want to work all the time, and how they didn't see sex as a way of only procreation. They saw sex in different ways, and they saw the Native Americans who were living peacefully on their land as savages, as beasts, and they thought they were subhuman, and they thought that they could enslave them. And Squanto was like, no, 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 don't do it. And they didn't then. But they were having their dinner, and right before their dinner, 4 of the Pilgrims went out to shoot wild game in the woods. And when they were shooting, the Wampanoag Indians, the tribe, heard this, and they saw this as a sign of aggression by the Pilgrims, and they were like, that's it, that's enough. They armored up with 98 soldiers. They were battle ready, and they came to the Pilgrims. They came to the Pilgrims' village, and there was almost a war. The Pilgrims were almost wiped out completely by the Native Americans. But because of the women, because of the food, because of Squanto, for some reasons, the Wampanoags decided not to kill the Pilgrims, and they kind of joined in on their dinner. They weren't invited. They were uninvited guests, and they probably made the Pilgrims feel uncomfortable because the way the Native Americans lived, especially the Wampanoag tribe, was very communal, was very open to everyone, sharing the land, sharing the food. The Protestants saw things differently. Um, Even though very interesting in history, the first Protestants that landed on Plymouth Rock and named it Plymouth Rock were actually socialist by structure. They actually lived in a way where they had a community where they had to share everything to survive. They did this out of survival. They had community rules. No one could have private supplies or private property. Everything was done for the good of all. So they were actually socialist as well, but they weren't as sharing and caring with others who they saw differently than themselves, who didn't worship the same God as themselves. But it is very interesting to know that the first settlers in the U.S. were actually from Europe, communists, community-oriented, just organizations and groups. Now, after this weird, awkward dinner that the Native Americans kind of forced upon the Pilgrims, more pilgrims came. These Protestant pilgrims were becoming more successful. They were able to harvest more food. They were able to send the word back to Europe. Europeans came, and officially the Europeans said there's no walls anywhere, so the land has to be ours. And the Native Americans were like, hey, we were actually here first. And then the settlers started to murder and kill all the Native Americans. And after huge success in battle, after murdering and butchering Native Americans, they gave thanks, and they had Thanksgiving. And every time they had huge successes and huge victories, they would have a huge feast, and that was Thanksgiving. It even came to a point where the chief of the Wampanoags, the chief, the main guy who decided not to kill all these settlers when he could have easily done it, the chief that had peace with these settlers, his head was cut off and put in the center of Plymouth for 24 years. The chief of the Wampanoag Indian tribe, that was mostly a peaceful tribe, his head was cut off and put on a pole in the center of Plymouth for 24 years. It got so bad that they continued this murdering rampages and then declaring victory and having a feast and dinner afterwards, that George Washington even decided to have a Thanksgiving proclamation declaring that we should not just be celebrating all the time. Like, it's alright, you guys could keep killing Indians, that's fine, but you guys are celebrating too much. Let's decide on one date. And different states had different days where they had an official Thanksgiving holiday. But even George Washington came to a point when he was president of the United States and said, chill out, let's stop celebrating all the time. This is getting confusing. Let's not have Thanksgiving every Tuesday. Let's have it once in a while so we could actually commemorate it and enjoy it and not be so confusing as it is right now. So George Washington made the first one, and then Abraham Lincoln, during the Civil War, when the Union was losing, declared Thanksgiving on the last Thursday of November. And then shortly after that, he sent his army to kill the Sioux Indians in Minnesota. The Sioux Indians were starving, were retreating, and then Abraham Lincoln decided to send his troops after declaring the national holiday Thanksgiving on every Thursday and every last Thursday of November. And then FDR came along and he totally messed everything up. There was what happened with FDR in 1939 was that many corporations, many companies went up to FDR and they said, you know, we should have more time for shopping. our economy is not doing that well. We need more time. So we have to move Thanksgiving 1 week earlier so we have more time for people to go out shopping and buy and consume and feed our corporate industrial complex. And then FDR said, okay. And then half the country was celebrating Thanksgiving a week earlier, and half of the country was celebrating Thanksgiving the last Thursday of November. It was called Franksgiving. It angered a lot of people until Congress in 1941 cleaned up the president's mess and declared officially Thanksgiving to be the fourth Thursday of November. So here it is, the true story of Thanksgiving that you will not hear anywhere else. I hope you liked this video, found it informational. I love looking into history and learning about things that I never heard of before. And if you found this useful, and if you heard of something you never heard of before, click the like button. We're going to have a lot more videos coming your way. Don't forget to check out the brand new website on WeAreChange.org. We also just launched our independent media journalism school. So check out the website. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and of course enjoy your Thanksgiving.